Welcome to the Savvy Dentist podcast with Dr. Jesse Green, the show where great dentistry meets great business. Listen in each week as we bring you an inspiring person who will share their story, ideas and business techniques to help you create a practice and a life you love. And now introducing your host, Dr. Jesse Green.
Hello everyone, it's Jesse Green here. Welcome back to SavvyDentist.com and to the Savvy Dentist podcast. It's wonderful to have your company for another episode of the show. Now my guest today has lived a really interesting life. His name is Martin Pigg and he's done everything in his life, including being a prison guard, selling pipes to the Russian oil companies, being chased out of Africa, all manner of things. And these days he works with people to help them live a life of passion, a life of intention, and a life of gratitude and grace. And this is going to be a really interesting podcast. And because I think if we set out to build a practice and a life that we love, how we go about living our life really matters. And having that passion, intent, gratitude, and grace really is the glue that kind of fills in the gaps, the crevices of our life. And yeah, to those listening, you might think, well, what's that got to do with the business of dentistry? I'm going to say everything, because how we conduct ourselves on a day-to-day basis impacts how well we go in our business life, but particularly how well we go in our personal life as well. So it's about having success and fulfillment, having a profitable practice and a wonderful life. It's about getting the and part in there. So I'm going to encourage you to have a listen to this podcast with Martin. It's a wonderful podcast. And if you want to find out more about Martin and his work, head across to martinpigg.com, and that's Pig with two G's, so P-I-G-G. So martinpigg.com, you can find it there. Now, if you're a practice owner and you want to take your practice to the next level, again, please come and join us in the Savvy Dentist Facebook group. We've got a ton of stuff going on there. We've got resources, tools, trainings, templates, and conversations as well that will help you take your practice to wherever you want to take it, whether it's earning more money, having more free time, enjoying greater freedom of choice, and there's going to be a ton of stuff there for you. But for now, let's get on to our conversation with Martin. Martin Pigg, thank you so much for joining us here on the Savvy Dentist podcast, all the way in Orlando. How's things with you today?
Hey, Jesse, it's great to be with you. Thank you. Things are great. You know, you wouldn't be surprised if I told you it's sunny here in Orlando.
No, I wouldn't be surprised. And I'm here in Canberra, and you probably may not be surprised to know it's not so sunny here at the moment. And I'm coming to Orlando in a couple of weeks, and I'm very much looking forward to some sunshine. So I hope it stays sunny over the next few weeks.
I think you can pretty much count on that, yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's a fairly safe bet. Hey, Martin, you've got a really interesting background. It's rich, it's diverse. You've done a lot of things in your life that are fascinating and interesting. And these days, you've got a real mission to help people get the most from their lives, find their purpose, live a life with passion, and all that entails. I wanted to ask you, though, a little bit about your background, because it is really fascinating. We had a few conversations off air, and it's like a boy's own adventure, your life. So I'm wondering if we can get a bit of an understanding of what your past has been, so that we can make sense of the present and the future as well.
Jesse, my whole past has been a preamble to what I'm doing now, and what I can tell you about it is, and I'll just hit some bullet points there for you. Graduated college with a phys ed degree. And in the small town in Huntsville, Texas, where I was graduated from college, you had two choices to make a decent living. You were either going to teach kids or you were going to guard inmates. Guarding inmates paid more money than teaching kids. Sadly, that's the truth. But so I chose the prison guard route. And I worked at a state penitentiary in Texas for 4 years, and then got caught up in a prison riot. And I said to myself, there has got to be a better way to make a living. I ended up getting together with a buddy of mine who retired from the oil field equipment business, and had invented this proprietary equipment for joining pipeline together. And I thought it was fascinating. He'd never sold one dime of it to American companies. It was during the oil bust. And I said to him, I want to sell this in Russia. Now, listen, I'm a guy with a phys ed degree. I have no international business degree. I don't have a pipeline engineering degree. I don't have a mechanical engineering degree. I don't have anything that you would think would qualify to make somebody successful in that industry. But I can tell you that after 2 years of sacrificing everything I had, bootstrapping, strategically looking for people to help me, we made our first multi-million-dollar sale in Russia.
Wow.
And so on the success of that, we started building that. And unfortunately, because I didn't have a partnership agreement with my partner at the time, he basically stole the business from me. He said, "You've done a great job. Now I'm going to take it from here and move on." Obviously, I was devastated, but I quickly turned that around and ended up saying, because I had all of these relationships in Russia, I went Russia and Georgia. I went to Georgia, the Republic of Georgia, into Tbilisi, and negotiated the sale of ammonium nitrate fertilizer for Russian farmers. So I would buy it there and sell it in Russia. And it got caught up, and so I was putting these deals together and got wound up with the wrong people. I ended up with this. There was this American CEO of a company. I'm not going to tell you who he was, but he had this run-in with, or he had this partnership with some African. In Africa, they call them 411s. That's kind of the tip for fraudsters. Yep. 419. I'm sorry, but anyway, so I met this American. He said, "Listen, I've got this great thing. You take money, you take it to Africa, they clean it, they take $100 bills, they put chemicals on it, they get rid of it, and then you take it and then you give it to." It was this long, convoluted story, but I thought it was fascinating. So I said to myself, "Okay, let's do this." So long story short, I went from selling fertilizer to African farmers to get involved with this guy about counterfeiting or selling $100 bills. Well, I ended up, I know this is crazy, Jesse, but I ended up losing all of my money to these African fraudsters.
Oh, no.
And so what happened was we got to the last day, we were in the hotel, and I think we had a $5,000 hotel bill or something like that. We didn't have any money to pay it. So we literally had to call somebody to get us out of the hotel, to sneak us out of the hotel and get us to the airport in Cotonou so we could catch a flight for Air France flight back to Paris, just ahead of the authorities who were trying to catch us for leaving the hotel with a $5,000 bill. Got back to America and ran into a guy who was another CEO of a company. He said he had African oil or Iranian oil that he could sell. We said, "Hey, I had my Russian connections. I had buyers. Why not try to see if we can buy Iranian oil and sell it to the Russians?" Well, that fell through. So everything is going wrong. I'm trying all of these things. And here's this guy with a phys ed degree that's going all around the world trying to figure out ways to make things work. I ended up in Tbilisi because I was negotiating these fertilizer contracts and got introduced to this woman and ended up being in a situation where this family cooked up this plot to kidnap me and force me to marry their daughter.
Oh, God.
Which apparently in Georgia is something that happens, because when a woman has been married in I guess their religion or whatever it is, when she has been married and gets a divorce, it's unlikely that she's ever going to marry again.
Yes.
So they look for people who they think, they could marry their daughter off to, and I just happened to be the person that they found. I managed to get out of that, get back to the United States, tried to settle on a quote unquote normal job. Worked in freight forwarding for 10 years, got a pilot's license, was flying around, having a good time, was good at sales. What happened was I was making six figures. I was working 15 hours a week. I was living in Baltimore at the time, flying from Baltimore to Orlando, back and forth. I'd hop in a four-seater, fly to Orlando. I'd be on the beach. Boss would call, "Where you at?" "Oh, I'm working." He didn't care because I was making money. I was making company money. So the long and the short of that is that I decided that I needed to quit that job and pursue my purpose. And my friends thought I was nuts because here I was making good money, flying airplanes all over the place, and working 15 hours a week.
Martin, there's a lot in there, and I want to ask a few things because, as I said, your story is like a boy's own adventure, and there's lots of lessons in there, no doubt. There's lots of experiences there which would have probably, made your hair stand on end at the time, and probably would still. But I wanted to ask you, I want to go back to that first job with the prison guards, because one of the things I wanted to ask you is, obviously people that are incarcerated have their liberty taken away from them to degrees and significant degrees. What I wanted to ask you about that is, what did you take away from that experience that you think has been helpful for you in your life? Because it sounds like, for those of us that have not experienced that, a rough, tough way of living, and obviously you went through a riot. But I'm curious to ask, what did you take from that experience? What were the lessons that came with that?
I think the prison experience for me, first of all, you can't help but appreciate just how important freedom is. That sounds like a cliche, but it's really true. Being in the prison and working as a guard had a profound impact on my determination not to live a mediocre life, not to live just a normal 9-to-5 type of life. And what I mean by that is that about year 4, in the penitentiary, I was really thinking I needed to go, because I was getting comfortable being comfortable. And what I mean by that was that I had a job. It started at a certain time. It ended at a certain time. The money paid my bills with a little bit extra. I had free meals. I had, all kinds of perks of being a guard or being an employee. And I saw how people, my colleagues, got used to that kind of life, and I saw their dreams start to die. And I just knew that I had to leave, because I felt like if I stayed much longer, I would become like them.
Wow, that's really funny, isn't it? Because I started my career as a Navy dentist, and similar sort of thing. It was an institution, much as I imagined the prison system or the penitentiary was in the United States, and I was very comfortable too. And interestingly enough, if I looked down the road 5 or 10 years and I looked at those people that were older than me, and I could see that that's the life that was ahead of me if I chose to stay, I was a bit like you. I felt like I needed to discover something that was more in line with my purpose, my passion. And that really leads me to ask you about your purpose and passion. And of course, your surname is Pigg, P-I-G-G, and you've turned your name into an acronym, which is Passion, Intent, Gratitude, and Grace. So I'm wondering, in all of that, where did you find your passion? Because you, as I said in the beginning, which is why I wanted to ask you about your background, because it has been quite a convoluted journey. Where and how did you discover your particular passion?
When I work with clients, there are a couple of things I talk about, and it's applicable to me. At least one of them is, and that is that, Jesse, I'll just tell you the PIGG principle, and then I can expand on that.
Sure.
The PIGG principle is, when you pursue your passion with intention and gratitude, your passion will either become your purpose or lead you to it. And when you live with grace, you help other people find and live their purpose. Now, I will break those down to you as it pertains to finding and living a purpose. Passion is finding the one thing that inspires you above all other things. Intention is the energy of what you do and who you connect to. Gratitude is gratitude for the journey and your blessings along the way. And then grace is moving through the world with love for yourself and others, and generosity in the offering of your time, talents, and network to help other people find and live their purpose. So when you talk about passion and purpose and PIGG and all of that, the one thing, if I look back on the Russia experiment, if I look up at my flying, beginning my pilot's license, all the things that I've done started out as a passion. And so the Russia thing was very impactful for me, because I had built that. I felt like selling that oil field equipment to the Russians was my purpose in life. And then when I had it stolen from me by the partner, it was like he stole my purpose from me.
Right.
So I actually wandered for years suffering that loss until I was able to heal myself from that. To explain the way the passion works, and the greatest passion, one of two things will happen. I will tell clients this. I will say, okay, so I want you to find your greatest passion, because I want you then to pursue that with intention. And they say, well, what if I don't have one? Well, here's the fun part about the principle. What you do is, and what I did, you throw a lot of passions or potential passions against the metaphorical wall and see which one sticks. You're going to find something that resonates with who you are at the core of your being. And when you find that thing, you pursue it with intention. And when you do that, your passion will either become your purpose or lead you to it.
Yeah.
And so that's where passion comes in.
So
the other thing let me tell you, Jesse, let me also interject this. Now, with regard to flying and when pigs fly, for what I do now came about as a result of what the authors, I don't know if you've read the book or heard of the book, When God Winks by Squire Rushnell.
No, I've not heard of that book.
Rushnell talks about these aha moments that happen in your life.
Yep.
That almost sometimes seem like coincidence, but it's really actually God or the universe sending you messages about something you should pay attention to. And so with me, back in, I guess it was 2000, I was working for a company and I went on a cruise, Caribbean cruise, and tried parasailing for the first time.
Oh, nice.
So there I am floating over Orient Bay, and it was the most peaceful, calm experience I've ever had. It was so quiet. It was sunny. I was just looking up into the sun with my eyes closed, just feeling the beauty of the warmth of the sun hitting my face. And in my head, something said, you should try this with flying airplanes. So I made a mental note of that, and I went home, and I connected with somebody, a friend of mine. His son was a pilot, and so I went up with him, and that first time on a flight from Baltimore, Maryland to Reading, Pennsylvania, at 4,500 feet, as the sun was setting, he turns to me and he says, would you like to fly the airplane? I was blown away. I was like, I can do that. He said, yeah, you just have to hold heading and altitude, and I'll tell you how to. So the moment he handed me the control, the moment I put my hand on his yoke, something changed in my life. You talk about freedom. There was a sense of freedom that I experienced with that, a spiritual connection with that changed my life. And then the next morning I went to the flight school and I signed up for flight lessons. I got my pilot's license in 6 months. But as I was a student pilot, here's another significant thing about a passion. And this is why your greatest passion matters. And this is why we need to pursue our passions, because they give us messages and signs about things that could be really important to us. So I'm 20 hours into my learning to become a pilot, and somewhere around 15 or 20 hours, it's common practice for the instructor to get out of the airplane and let you do a solo flight.
Okay.
And so here I am. I got probably 20 hours of instruction in the plane. We taxi over to the tarmac, and my instructor, Dave, says to me, okay, it's time for you to take it up. I want 3 landings and then taxi back to the hangar. Cool. Nervous as you can be. Because you're in this plane by yourself, man. You've had your safety blanket sitting in the seat next to you. So anyway, I won't bore you with all the story leading up to getting onto the runways. But anyway, I turned onto the runway and I just closed my eyes. I took a deep breath and I said, sweet Jesus, please let me land this plane safe. I was so nervous. So I opened my eyes. All the pilots, my pilot friends were all over there watching, because everybody's going to watch me land to see how I do. So I push the throttle forward. The airplane starts to take off, starts to roll. I don't know how many feet down, how far I was down the runway. I pull back on the yoke, and I'm airborne. Now, in the solo landings, this first solo landings as student pilot are just, you stay in the airport traffic pattern and you do 3 takeoffs and landings. That's it. You don't go anywhere. So there are several turns. So I make all the turns. I'm at about 1,000 feet. I'm feeling cocky, man. I got this, man. I'm up in the air. I'm flying at 1,000 feet. I'm good. And then I make my turn to final, and I line up at the runway, and I'm like, holy, I got to land this thing. And I got nobody to save me. This is my first landing an airplane. And, that right there makes makes things pucker. It's a very daunting thing. So anyway, once again, I close my eyes and I'm pray. I'm like, just God, please let me land safe. So I land. I kind of bounced the first one, if I'm being honest. I bounce it, but I get down. I'm good.
Yep.
I do 2 more.
Yep.
Turn off of the runway, onto the taxiway, stop the airplane. And at that moment, I said to myself, in my brain popped up, if I can do that, I can do anything. And that's what a passion can do for you. If you have something that moves you at the core of your being, that stirs something inside of you that makes you believe that you're better and bigger than you ever thought you were before, you can't help but build a life that is based around your dreams and based around making things that you once thought were impossible possible. And so that's the power of having a passion. And so when I talk to people and I say, what are you passionate about? Well, I don't know why. I just want to shake them.
But why do you think people lose sight of their passion? Why is it that some people are really in tune with their passion, and why do you think some people have lost sight of what stirs them? Why do you think people get into that rut?
Most people are externally motivated. I mean, you have to be internally motivated to pursue a passion. You have to be, okay, what do I want to do? Not what does my family want from me? What do my kids want from me? What do I want to do? And some people think that's selfish.
I don't know. I think it's living a true life, but that's just me. But can we talk about internal versus external motivation for a second? Because
Sure.
I think there's something in that. And I think for a lot of people, and I've certainly been part of that group of people as well in the past, where I was doing things because I thought that's what you did, or I thought that's the path to success. It was like someone else's version of success that I was trying to live, basically, if that makes sense. And I wanted to ask you, is that a common thing, or do you think it's just a trap that some people fall into?
The trap being what?
Living someone else's definition of success.
No, Jesse. This is the problem. This is the major problem in life. One of the things that I do with my work is I help people defeat the voices of mediocrity. And those voices are three types. You have internal voices, you have external voices, and you have the external voices that become internalized. The problem is that those, we come into the world, I believe we come into the world with a mission in life. I believe, but we're unable to verbalize that mission upon arrival. So what do? We have parents that program us to be a certain way. Mm-hmm. And so Aristotle said, give me a child until he is 7 and I will show you the man. And so I know that programming that we get from our parents, from our friends, from society is the thing that robs so many people of the opportunity to live authentic lives unless they do the hard work of reprogramming themselves and with authentic language, with authentic core values that are important to them, and then they live by those values. That's the reason. The reason why so many people are externally motivated is because they've allowed everybody else to give their input and frame the way they live their lives.
It sounds to me that for some people, their passion is buried under a pile of layers of expectation of others and so on, and you've got to kind of peel back those layers to reveal or to rediscover even the purpose that drives you. And so I wanted to ask you if there's a process of revealing that. Is there? I mean, you've said throw some stuff against the wall and see what sticks. But is there, like, for someone listening to this podcast and saying, well, hey, Martin, I used to feel like I had a purpose. I've lost sight of it. How do I reconnect with it?
Well, here's the thing. When you use the PIGG Principle or you use this idea of pursuing a passion, your purpose finds you.
Yeah,
you don't find your purpose. And so what I mean by that is in the Declaration of Independence, Jefferson wrote the famous line, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Mm-hmm. Jefferson was wrong. Pursuing happiness is the wrong thing to do. Happiness is an ideal. Mm-hmm. You ain't never going to be able to pursue an ideal and reach it. And it's the same thing with a purpose. Here's my take on purpose. Purpose is an ideal, just like happiness is an ideal. So why I try to get people to pursue a passion is because it's not the daunting thing. I've got to find my purpose. No, you just have to find something that moves you, that you enjoy, that you want to do, that you want to be intentional about. And that that passion will either become your purpose or lead you to it. So in this way of thinking, your purpose finds you. You don't find your purpose. You're having fun. You're going along, enjoying, trying different things, having fun, doing things, being open. You've got to be open to trying new things, to find something. And you try this, okay? It was fun, but I want to try this. Okay, it's fun. I just got this. Oh, wow, yeah, this resonates with me. I love this. I'm going to do more of this. And when you do more of that, you are going to that's either going to become your purpose or it's going to lead you to your purpose, like flying, bodybuilding that I do. Those passions, they all led me to the same purpose.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that if you pursue your passion, the purpose will find you, but equally then there could be multitude of passions that all lead to the same purpose. And where does the intent part come into that? Just talk me through intent, because here's something that I think about intent, and this is just a straight up opinion. There's no... doesn't mean it's right, is what I'm trying to say. This is just the world according to Jesse. But I think that most of us live our lives unintentionally. And I think that we do things unintentionally. We say things unintentionally. We're kind of just kind of meandering through. And so I wanted to ask you about the role of intention in all of this.
Robin Sharma, I don't know if you're familiar with Robin Sharma. He's got the famous, he's got the famous book, or the famous line, ideation without execution is delusion. Yeah. So that's the same thing I'm talking about here with intention. You can have a passion, but you have to be intentional about the pursuit of it. And what I mean by that, and there's a couple of different layers of that, intention in this, for what we're talking about here, the energy of what you do and who you connect to. So it's about action. It's about taking action. I've worked with clients in the past, and I talk about their passions, and they say, well, I love to do this. I love to do that. When did you do it? Well, I did it 3 months ago. No. It's about it being intentional. It's about taking action. It's about executing, as Robin Sharma would say. It's about knowing. So like when I was a pilot, when I wanted to be a pilot, I didn't just, occasionally go out to the airport, maybe take a lesson. I was going every day or every other day, and I was studying the stuff. I had my license in 6 months. I got my commercial license. I got 2 instrument ratings. I got a multi-engine rating. So, I was active in it and doing it and getting confidence and loving it. And then ultimately it led me to where I am today. My bodybuilding is the same thing. I'm a competitive bodybuilder. I'm 58, but I'm intentional about that. And in the last 4 months of contest prep, that I was getting ready for this show that I was in a couple of weeks ago, I was intentional about that with my diet, strict, with the cardio, with the training like a beast, with everything that I was doing. And Jesse, I will tell you, I had the most transformative experience I've ever had in my life in the last 4 months with this competition. I took my life to the next level. And so what I'm saying to you is that when you find a passion, it's about being intentional about the pursuit. Now, equally as important, and this is just as hard for anybody else as taking action, the people you connect to. It's the famous line that I know you've heard. Jim Rohn said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." That's true. So who are the battery chargers and the battery drainers in your life? Who are those people that support you? Yeah, you can be a pilot. You're going to do this. You can be a bodybuilder. You're good, man. You're strong. I believe in you. And who are the people that are like, you're 58. You're 58.
Dude,
why don't you just relax? So it's about the execution, but it's also about who are you around. Who are in your circle that are the positive people? And if you got negative people, why do you have negative people in your life? So it's about being intentional about who they are and being intentional about what you do.
So one of the things I want to just talk about intention as well, because what I've noticed where people get tripped up is with what I call yeah buts. Martin, but my circumstances are different. Yeah, but, right? And another friend of mine calls that butt face, just as a reference as well. He says, we just never got to get into butt face. So what I wanted to ask you, Martin, is because there'll be people listening to this podcast that say, hey, I understand the idea of finding a passion. I understand that if I pursue that passion with intention, my purpose will come to me, and I get that. And when I find that, then I can live with gratitude and grace. That's perfect. But Martin, you don't understand my circumstances, but you don't understand my responsibilities, but you don't understand why I can't. And there's all these kind of reasons why not. And for some people, those reasons feel really real. And I wanted to ask you about, for someone listening to this listening to this podcast in the car going to work, saying, well, that's an interesting conversation, fellas, but I'm driving to work and I've got 50 patients waiting for me when I get there. I've got team members, who need me for this. I've got a mother-in-law who needs me for that, and so on and so forth. So I wanted to ask you about the day-to-day pressures and making sure that we can be intentional and remain on point as we go through this.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind when you bring that up is that the yeah, but people, if I'm going to be a dime store psychologist, I'm going to say that the yeah, but people are suffering from a lack of self-love.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because if you love yourself, you're going to make room for yourself. If you're giving yourself all of your time and all of your energy and all of who you are to other people, you're not loving yourself.
That's true.
There's a quote that I love that helped me as I was going through a divorce and has helped me in some other situations. And that was that when the choice is to disappoint yourself or someone else, always choose to disappoint someone else.
Ooh, I like that. I guess that's the thing, isn't it? We all walk around our own skin. We've got to be happy with the person we hang out with most.
Well, but the true thing about it is, Jesse, if you and I are friends and you want me to do something, but I really, really don't want to do it, but I do it anyway.
Yeah, well, I don't want you to do it for those reasons.
I'm just saying that I've violated the sanctity of who I am, and I'm just not going to do that.
Absolutely, but I also think that a true friend wouldn't ask you to violate that sanctity of who you are as well.
Right.
Is where I was going with that. So let's talk about gratitude and grace, because gratitude is something that's very important in all of our lives. I'm a big fan of consciously practicing gratitude, being intentional with our gratitude, if you will. And I want to talk about grace as well, the 2 Gs. So talk us through how you see gratitude playing a role in life and what role it might have played in your life, but equally living with a sense of grace.
Gratitude is so huge. And you know this, Jesse. Yeah. I'm not telling you something you don't know. If you're somebody who has studied quantum physics, or even maybe not gone so deep into that and just watched the law of attraction or The Secret, with the law of attraction, you understand that like energies are attracted to each other. The law of attraction is that which is likened to itself is drawn. Positive attracts positive, negative attracts negative. It's just, it's easy. It's simple to understand. And so, it's this thing about the more you're grateful, the more you attract other things to be grateful for to you. I mean, it's just a normal way of living. And so gratitude for me has been huge in my life. And the times where maybe things have not gone so well for me, it's because I had fallen out of a gratitude practice. And that when I did that, suddenly I felt better. Now, I will also tell you, gratitude, there's this book called The Gap and the Gain by Dan Sullivan of Strategic Coach. He talks about the problem is, in terms of being, grateful for where we are, we tend to judge where we are by where we wish we were rather than where we were.
Yeah.
6 years ago, my mom died in my arms suddenly and unexpectedly from a pulmonary embolism.
Oh, gosh.
And my mom was my best friend. The year before that, my dad had been starved to death in a hospital in Texas. So I had gone through both parents with traumatic deaths, and especially my mom hurt the most because she was my rock and my role model and what have you. So when that happened, I was a wreck. My world collapsed. And for 2 years, I was in a period of really hard grief. I was almost evicted from my home. I ran out of food, and I didn't care. I did not care. I was in a really dark place. So today, and I say that because today, when I look at where I am, I'm grateful, and I'm grateful for that because I can look back on where I was and know just how far I've come. So for the people who listen to this podcast, think about the gap and the gain. The gap is when you're thinking about where you are versus where you wish you were. That's the gap. And the gain is thinking about where you are based on where you used to be. Mm-hmm. This idea of gratitude, if we can take a moment to realize that at some point in our life, we were a whole lot worse off than we are now. And yet we've come through that, and we are in a place now where we are so much better than we were. And if I look at every area of my life, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, relational, financial, and professional, I am better today than I was at any point in my life. And so I have goals, but I'm grateful for who I am right now. And because I'm grateful for who I am now, I attract into my life a lot of things to be grateful for.
I think the gap and the gain piece, and I'm familiar with Dan's work as we spoke about off air as well, I think that gap and the gain piece is really, really important. Again, I've fallen prey to this in my own life where you forget to recognize how far you've come, and you're constantly focusing on the gap rather than the progress or the gains that have been made. And it's really an interesting thing because I always thought that until that was pointed out to me, I always thought that I'm just striving for another goal. But what I found is until I reflected on the gains and felt a sense of pride or gratitude or satisfaction about having made those gains, I was just on this rinse and repeat cycle of always climbing a mountain and never really stopping to enjoy the view of how far I'd come, but always just looking up at the next summit. And after a while, that became uninspiring. It became a little bit self-defeating. And so for people listening to the show, and we work with lots of dentists who have made tremendous progress, I mean, enormous progress, Martin, you'd be amazed at what some of these people have been able to achieve. And yet we have to remind them and ourselves to always look back and celebrate. And I think that there's something in there because, I don't think that people do it enough is what I'm trying to say.
We're so hard on ourselves. And it's really amazing when you stop and think about just, when we can love ourselves. And that's part of the grace. That's part of the grace part of the whole principle is that, with grace. And I tell people, here's what I say. You'll know you've found your purpose when at least you have these three things. Mm-hmm. Passion for what you do, personal growth, and contribution, making a difference in the world. If you have passion, growth, and contribution, you've got a purpose. And so with regard to passion, intention, and gratitude, I say, here's what I say. In the when pigs fly thing, I say passion, intention, and gratitude give you wings. Grace gives you lift. And what I mean by that is that you're doing for others. That's the thing that because we're all supposed to be, we're so at each other all the time when really what we're supposed to be is everybody's cheerleader. We're supposed to be rallying behind people and supporting each other and lifting people up. And so the grace part of it starts with having love for yourself, which is the key, and then others. And then generosity in the offering of your time, talents, and network to help other people find and live their purpose. So you're loving yourself, you're loving other people, and you're being generous. What are the three most important things you have? Your time, your talents, and your network. If you're generously offering those in the spirit of helping another person, magic can happen.
Well, Martin, you've been very generous today with your time, your talents, your passions, your energy, your everything, your network, the whole thing. And so I wanted to firstly acknowledge that and say thank you because as we're recording this podcast, ladies and gents, it's falling nighttime in Orlando and I can see the darkness starting to surround Martin. I'm sitting here in sunlight and the sun must be setting over there. But Martin, you have been really generous with your time today and your wisdom and experience. what I wanted to ask you, just to round out our conversation, is if you wanted to leave our audience with some final thoughts about how their pigs can fly, what would be the gospel according to Martin? And then, of course, what I'd really like to do is to encourage people to come across to your website, to martinpigg.com, find out all about your work, because there's some really cool resources there. I'd like to hear about your book as well. But what would be a couple of gospel according to Martin type things, and then where can people get a copy of your book and find out more?
Well, I have kind of a Martin Piggism that I tell people that it's something that I live by, and it's never allow the voices of mediocrity to silence the whispers of your own soul.
Ooh.
And what I mean by that is, we were talking about the voices of mediocrity, and we allow them to drown out the dreams we have for our life. And so I understand that, life can be hard and there can be challenges. And, God knows I've been through a lot of the things that you folks are going through now in relationships and work and everything like that. So I'm not asking you the daunting question. If you don't know your purpose, I'm not saying find your purpose. I'm saying just make an effort to find some joy. I'm a big on acronyms. And so I wrote something about the 10 acronyms of a purpose-filled life, and I have that available to people. But anyway, for joy, the acronym is just open yourself. And what I mean by that is just open yourself to the possibility of finding a spark. Find something that can lift your soul. Don't give up hope. Just try new things. Open yourself to new things, new adventures, new people. Connect with people. Stay connected with people that care. Don't stop looking for that one spark that could start a fire that could change your entire life.
It's amazing. Love that. Joy. Just open yourself. One of the things, actually, just if I could pick up that before we get to your book and things, one of my good friends is always saying, when we talk about our business, he's always talking about business owner joy. And he talks about optimizing your life and your business for maximum amounts of joy. And I think that there's a lot in that, because, here's the thing. I believe that success of any kind is a bit meaningless if we don't have that fulfillment piece. And I think that joy and fulfillment and all the things that come with passion are there to be had. And I think it sounds like we're singing from the same hymn sheet there. So Martin, what I'd really like to ask you is about your book. And where can people get a copy of it? What's the premise of the book? And because I love a good read, we've already mentioned some good books on the show today already, and I'd like to just talk about yours for a second, because the title, when you mentioned the title to me before, it really sung to me.
Well, the book is Winning the War with Yourself, and it's how to win the fight for your purpose and live a life that matters. And I wrote that while I was going through the grieving and healing from the loss of my mom. And I'm actually working on an updated version of it. But it's the idea that we have two selves within each one of us that battle for the right to determine the course of our lives. We have the authentic self and we have the insidious self. And the insidious self is the fusion of your own fears, criticisms, disappointments, and judgments with your fears, criticisms, disappointments, and judgments of your friends, your family, and society at large. That's the insidious self. The authentic self is tethered to your soul and cries out to you to do work that matters. And so there's this constant battle between the authentic self and the insidious self to control your life. And really, what it comes down to is, which one of those selves are you aligned with? And that's going to determine whether or not you're living a life filled with joy and happiness and love, or if you're living a life that's less than what you could be. So it's this constant battle between the insidious self and the authentic self. The insidious self has an arsenal of weapons that it can deploy, like doubt, greed, fear, those weapons, versus the authentic array of powers like faith, hope, love, those kinds of things, and how they battle each other. And so it's like, how do we how do we strengthen our authentic weapons so that we negate the insidious, or our authentic powers, so we negate the insidious weapons that threaten us anytime we dare to think of a life that could be more significant than the one we have. So that's basically that in a nutshell, what that particular book is about. And that book is available on my website. I mean, it's available, the link to my bio and Instagram, which is just at Martin Pigg. And so those are both there. That's the book. And then I have other resources. I have the guides to the PIGG Principle and things like that on my website, which are available for preview. You know, you can go and preview them, look at the first 10 pages. If it resonates with you, you can buy it. They're $7-8. They're not terribly expensive. But the thing about it is, you know, I wanted people to have a look at the principle just before, test it out, test drive it. And then if they like it, take it and run with it.
Cool. Well, Martin, thank you for sharing that. Ladies and gents, I'd really encourage you to get a hold of the book and all the other resources Martin's got on his website. I've had a good look through them. They're really useful. They're really practical. And so, Martin, just as we wrap up, again, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us. And as this conversation's gone on, it's getting progressively dark, and so I can see your silhouette, and that's about it now, mate. So thank you for all of that. You're an absolute trooper and a champion, and hopefully we can catch up soon. Thanks once again, mate.
Well, it's been an honor, and I understand you're going to be in my neck of the woods soon. So you're welcome to Orlando.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to coming across. I can't wait. It'll be good fun.
Thank you for listening to the Savvy Dentist podcast. For more episodes, go to drjessegreen.com/savvydentist. And to discover how to build a high-performance dental practice, visit drjessegreen.com and download the free report.